There is a reason your nan's shin of beef tasted better than the sirloin you paid 20 quid for last Saturday. She wasn't buying better food. She was buying the worst food on the butcher's block and doing something to it that nobody teaches anymore. Number 14 on this list is why restaurant gravy tastes different to yours. Number 3 costs nothing and changes everything. 25 tricks, all of them free, all of them nearly lost. Hit subscribe before we start. Let's count down from number 25. Number 25, warming the plates. It sounds like nothing. It is not nothing. Your nan kept the plates in the bottom oven or stacked over the pan of simmering potatoes or in the airing cupboard on a Sunday if the range was busy. Cold china strips the heat out of food in under a minute. Gravy skins over. Butter stops melting. Mash turns claggy on the plate before the second person has sat down. A warm plate holds a meal at eating temperature for the full 15 minutes it takes a family to eat it. Every decent restaurant in Britain does this and charges you for the privilege. Your nan did it with a tea towel and a bottom oven that was already on. It cost her nothing and it made cheap stew taste like it came from somewhere with a wine list. Number 24, browning the mince properly. Watch most people cook mince today. They tip a pound of it into a lukewarm pan all at once, and it sits there weeping grey liquid, boiling in its own juice, going the colour of wet cardboard. Your nan browned mince in batches in a screaming hot pan with a scrape of dripping, and she did not touch it for 2 minutes. That dark crust that formed was the entire flavour of the meal. Food scientists call it the Maillard reaction. She called it getting some colour on it. Mince at 2 shillings a pound tasted like a proper joint because she built flavour that was never in the meat to start with. A crowded pan steams. A hot pan roasts. The whole difference between a bolognese that tastes of tomato and one that tastes of beef lives in those 2 minutes. Number 23. Infusing the milk. Before your nan made a white sauce, she put the milk in a pan with half an onion, a bay leaf, a few peppercorns, and brought it barely to a shiver. Then she took it off, covered it, and left it while she did something else. 20 minutes later, she strained it and made the sauce. That sauce went into fish pie, cauliflower cheese, lasagna, parsley sauce for the ham. It tasted of something. A bay leaf cost a penny out of a jar that lasted 3 years. An onion end was going in the bin anyway. Modern recipes tell you to melt butter, add flour, add cold milk from the bottle, and wonder why cauliflower cheese tastes of flour and sadness. The milk is the sauce. If the milk is boring, the sauce is boring, and no amount of cheese will rescue it. Number 22. A scrape of Marmite. Half a teaspoon. That was it. Into the stew, into the gravy, into the shepherd's pie, stirred through until it vanished. You could never taste Marmite in the finished thing, and that was the point. Yeast extract is almost pure glutamate, the same compound that makes aged parmesan and slow-cooked bones taste of depth. Your nan had no idea about the chemistry. She knew that a jar costing 1 and 6 sat in the cupboard for a year and made scrag end taste like braised beef. Chefs now sell this trick in cookbooks and call it umami layering. The Women's Institute was doing it in 1954 and calling it a bit of Marmite in the pot. If your stew tastes thin and you cannot work out why, this is the answer, and it has been in your cupboard the whole time. Number 21. The melted anchovy. 2 anchovy fillets from a tin, dropped into hot fat at the start of a beef stew, stirred until they dissolved completely. They do dissolve. They go from little brown fish to nothing at all in about 90 seconds, and they leave behind a savoury backbone that nobody at the table will ever identify. Nobody tastes fish. Nobody has ever tasted fish. What they taste is a stew that seems to have been cooked for 9 hours instead of 3. Your nan learned this from a wartime pamphlet or a neighbour or a mother-in-law who never explained herself. A tin cost a few pence and did 5 dinners. This is the single cheapest way in Britain to make a piece of shin taste like the beef your butcher would have charged triple for. Number 20. Cold butter, cold hands, cold everything. Pastry is flour, fat, and water. It costs pennies. Whether it comes out flaky and layered or tough and grey is decided entirely by temperature. Your nan grated frozen butter straight into the flour, ran her hands under the cold tap first, used iced water, and worked fast. She never kneaded it. She never overworked it. She rested it in the larder before rolling. Those cold shards of butter stayed solid until they hit the oven, then burst into steam and blew the pastry apart into leaves. Warm butter smears into the flour and makes cardboard. The ingredients are identical. 20 pence of flour and butter becomes a steak pie with a lid that shatters when you cut it, or it becomes a lid you could risole a shoe with. Temperature is the only variable, and it is free. Number 19. The splash of vinegar at the end. Something in the pot tastes flat, and you cannot say why. It's got salt, it's had hours, it still tastes like it's missing a note. Your nan reached for the malt vinegar and put in a teaspoon, right at the end, off the heat. Suddenly, the whole thing woke up. Acid does something salt cannot. It sharpens the edges of every other flavor and makes rich food taste less heavy and more expensive. A splash in the lentil soup, a shake over the chips, a spoon into the braised red cabbage. A bottle cost 4p and lived by the cooker for a year. Modern cooks add more salt, then more salt again, and end up with something you can barely eat. The problem was never salt. The problem was that nothing in the pot was sour. Number 18. Browning the flour. Before your nan made gravy, she cooked the flour in the fat until it went the color of a digestive biscuit. Not 30 seconds, 3 or 4 minutes, stirred constantly, until the raw, floury smell disappeared and something nutty and toasted took its place. That color is flavor, and it is also why proper gravy is glossy brown rather than beige and pasty. Raw flour tastes of raw flour, and no amount of stock hides it. This is the entire difference between a gravy that tastes homemade in the good sense and one that tastes homemade in the apologetic sense. It costs an extra 4 minutes and no money whatsoever. Gravy granules exist because a generation stopped doing this, tasted the result, and decided that a tube of maltodextrin was somehow the lesser evil. Number 17. Mustard powder in the cheese sauce. A 1/4 teaspoon of Coleman's dry mustard powder, whisked into the flour before the milk went in. You cannot taste mustard in a cauliflower cheese made this way. What you can taste is cheese, and more of it. And it seems sharper and more mature than the mousetrap cheddar it was actually made with. The compounds in mustard heighten the perception of dairy sharpness. Your nan bought the cheapest block on the counter, sometimes the end pieces the grocer sold off, and made a sauce that tasted like it had a farmhouse vintage in it. A tin of Coleman's cost 6p and lasted years in the cupboard. This is a trick every cook in every hotel kitchen in Britain still uses, and almost nobody at home does anymore. Number 16. Lemon zest, never juice. At the very end, over the fish, over the peas, over the buttered new potatoes, she'd take the fine side of the grater and take just the yellow off a lemon, never the white pith beneath it. The oils in that zest are perfume. They hit the steam coming off the plate and travel to the table before the plate does. You smell expensive food before you taste it, and your brain has already decided the meal is good before the fork moves. Juice makes things sour. Zest makes things smell like money. 1 lemon at 4p did 4 dinners, and the juice still went in the tea. This is the whole trick behind why restaurant vegetables taste different to yours, and it takes 8 seconds. Number 15. Nutmeg on anything with milk in it. The nutmeg lived in a little tin with the grater built into the lid, and it came out for the rice pudding, the bread sauce, the white sauce, the mash, the custard, and the spinach. Barely a scrape. Never enough to identify. Whole nutmeg holds its oils for years, while ground nutmeg is dust within months, which is why your nan grated hers fresh and why yours in the jar does nothing. Dairy is fat and sugar, and it tastes flabby without something aromatic pushing against it. That scrape of nutmeg is what makes a plain milk pudding taste composed rather than accidental. 1 nutmeg cost 2p and lasted the better part of a decade. It is the smallest possible intervention with the largest possible return in the entire British kitchen. Number 14. The tin is the gravy. Here is the one that separates every roast dinner in Britain into two categories. When the joint came out of the roasting tin, your nan did not wash that tin. She poured off most of the fat, put the tin straight over 2 rings on the hob, and while it was smoking, she threw in a slosh of water, or the potato water, or a splash of stout, and scraped. All those blackened sticky bits welded to the metal came up into the liquid and turned it dark. That, and only that, is what gravy is. Those scrapings are hours of roasting concentrated into a spoonful. A cheap shoulder of pork produced a gravy indistinguishable from one made with a joint costing 4 times as much, because the flavour was in the tin, not the meat. Millions of British roasting tins now go into the sink with the whole dinner still stuck to them, and their owners open a packet instead. Reading University tested this in the 2000s and found the dissolved fond contributes more perceived meatiness than the meat itself. Your nan worked that out with a wooden spoon and no research grant. Number 13. Resting the meat. 20 minutes under foil and a tea towel on the side, while the Yorkshires went in and the gravy got made. Everyone in the house complaining it would go cold. It did not go cold. What it did was let the muscle fibers relax and reabsorb the juice that high heat had driven to the middle of the joint. Carve it straight out of the oven and half the moisture runs out onto the board and down the drain, and you eat dry meat and wonder why. Rest it and that liquid stays where it belongs. This matters most on the cheap cuts, the ones with less fat to fall back on. Brisket, shoulder, breast of lamb. Your nan did it because her mother did it. It is 20 minutes of doing absolutely nothing, and it is worth more than any marinade ever invented. Number 12. Onions cooked for 40 minutes, not 5, not 8, 40. Low heat, a lid on for the first stretch to sweat them, then the lid off, then the patience to sit there while they went from white to translucent to gold to bronze. Your nan started her onions and then went and did the washing, the ironing, the letters. An onion at a penny each turned into the sweetest thing in the kitchen, and it went under the liver, into the soup, over the sausages, into the cheese and onion pie. Onion soup is water, bread, cheese and onions. It is the cheapest thing you can put on a table, and it tastes like a restaurant, and the only reason it does is those 40 minutes. Rush them, and you get raw crunch and a sour edge. Nobody has ever regretted cooking onions for too long. Number 11. Nothing leaves the kitchen. There was a bag in the freezer, or a bowl in the larder before freezers, and into it went the leek tops, the parsley stalks, the onion skins, the carrot ends, the mushroom stalks, the chicken carcass, the parmesan rind if such a thing ever appeared. When it was full, it went in the big pot with water and a bay leaf and sat at a shiver for 3 hours. That was stock, and it cost precisely 0, because every ingredient in it had already been paid for and was destined for the bin. Parsley stalks in particular carry more flavour than the leaves. Your nan never bought stock in her life. Britain now spends hundreds of millions a year on liquid in cardboard cartons made largely from salt, while throwing away the actual ingredients that would have made better stock for free. Number 10. Roast the bones first. The stock trick above has a second half, and this is where it goes from thrifty to genuinely luxurious. Before the bones went in the water, your nan spread them in the roasting tin and put them in a hot oven for half an hour until they were deep brown and the kitchen smelled like the best Sunday of your life. Those roasted bones make a stock that is dark, glossy, and rich enough to set to jelly in the cold larder. Raw bones make a pale, thin, watery thing. Same bones, same water. Half an hour of heat is the entire difference. A chicken carcass the butcher gave away free became the base of a soup you would happily pay £8 for in a pub. The bones were rubbish. She made them the most valuable thing in the house. Number 9. Salt the day before. The joint came out of the paper on Saturday afternoon, got a heavy scattering of salt all over, and went back in the larder uncovered until Sunday morning. Everyone now believes salt dries meat out. Over an hour, it does. Over a night, the opposite happens. The salt draws moisture out, dissolves in it, and that concentrated brine gets pulled back into the meat, seasoning it all the way through instead of just on the crust. It also dries the surface, which is exactly what you want for crackling and for a proper crust. This is what the restaurant trade calls dry brining and charges accordingly. Your nan called it salting the joint. It costs 1/10 of a penny of salt and one night of doing nothing, and it makes a cheap shoulder taste seasoned to the bone, rather than salty on the outside and bland in the middle. Number 8. The dripping chips. Chips cooked in beef dripping are not the same food as chips cooked in vegetable oil. And anyone who ate in Britain before the 1980s will tell you so and be entirely correct. Dripping has a higher smoke point than most oils, and it carries beef flavor into the potato itself. Your nan kept the jar by the cooker, strained through muslin after every roast, and it cost nothing because it was a byproduct of a joint she'd already bought. 2p of potatoes became something people crossed a town for. The chip shops abandoned dripping when the fat panic arrived in the 70s, and the 2015 review published in the British Medical Journal found the science underpinning that panic was never as settled as we were told. We threw away the flavor first and the certainty second. Number 7. Red currant jelly in the gravy. A teaspoon stirred into the gravy at the end until it disappeared. Not enough to make it sweet. Just enough to give it a glossy shine and a rounded finish that made a Tuesday gravy taste like something out of a hotel dining room. Sharp fruit against rich meat is one of the oldest ideas in British cooking, and it works for the same reason the vinegar trick works, except this one adds body and gleam at the same time. Your nan had a jar from a fete or a hedge, and it went into the lamb gravy. The venison, if such a thing ever appeared. The beef stew on a good day. A jar cost a shilling and lasted a season. It is the closest thing to a magic trick on this entire list. Number 6. A cup of tea in the stew. Strong black tea poured into the pot with the stock, on the cheapest and toughest cut in the shop. The tannins in tea do exactly what tannins in red wine do. They break down connective tissue and add a dry, structured depth that stops a long braise from tasting soupy and one-note. Your nan did not have red wine. Red wine in a 1950s terraced kitchen was a thing that happened in books. She had a pot of tea going constantly and no reason not to use it. Brisket at 1 6 a pound came out of that pot at 5:30, falling apart under a fork. This trick appears in Women's Institute books in pencil in the margins, passed along quietly, never explained, and it works exactly as well today as it did then. Number 5. Sausages in a cold pan. Everyone now throws sausages into a hot pan, and everyone now gets sausages that split, burn black in 3 places, and stay pink in the middle. Your nan put them in a cold pan with a little dripping and brought the heat up slowly, turning them for 20 minutes. The fat inside rendered out gently instead of exploding. The skins stayed intact, and what she ended up with was an evenly bronzed sausage sitting in a pool of its own rendered fat, which then became the onion gravy. Cheap sausages have more fat and more filler, which means they need this treatment more, not less. It is the difference between a banger that tastes like a school dinner and one that tastes like a proper butcher's. It costs 15 extra minutes of low heat. Number 4. Bicarbonate in the roast potato water. Half a teaspoon of bicarb in the pan when the potatoes went on to parboil. The alkaline water broke down the pectin on the outside of each potato, so that when your nan drained them and shook the pan violently with the lid on, the surfaces collapsed into a rough, starchy fluff. That fluff, hitting hot dripping, is what produces a roast potato with a shell like glass and an interior like a cloud. Smooth potatoes make smooth roasties, which is to say, disappointing ones. A bag of Maris pipers at a few pence became the thing every person at the table remembered about the meal. The bicarb cost a fraction of a penny out of a tin she'd had since before you were born. This is the most valuable half teaspoon in British cooking. Number 3. Season at every stage. This is the one that costs nothing at all and changes more than any other. Your nan salted the onions when they went in, salted the meat when it browned, salted the liquid when it went in, tasted at the end and salted again if it needed it. Most people now cook an entire meal, seasoning nothing. Then shake salt over the finished plate and wonder why it tastes salty on top and empty underneath. Salt added early dissolves into the food and becomes part of it. Salt added late sits on the surface and just tastes like salt. Same total quantity, completely different result. This single habit is the largest gap between home cooking and professional cooking anywhere in the world, and it requires no ingredient you do not already own. Number 2. The knob of butter at the end. Off the heat, into the gravy, into the mash, over the boiled carrots, into the soup. A knob of cold butter, stirred or swirled until it melted and vanished. It does two things. It emulsifies, giving the sauce a thickness and a shine that no flour can produce. And fat carries flavor to the tongue in a way water simply cannot, which is why the same soup tastes twice as good with butter in it. Chefs call this monter au beurre, put it on menus in French and add £4 to the price. Your nan called it a bit of butter, half an ounce costing a farthing, over a bowl of vegetable soup made from the ends of things, and suddenly it tasted like it had been made by someone with money. Number 1. Time and the willingness to give it away. Every single trick on this list is a way of adding something to cheap food that cheap food does not have. And the thing your nan was actually adding, in almost every case, was time. 40 minutes for the onions, 3 hours for the stock, overnight for the salt, all afternoon for the shin of beef at the lowest heat the oven would hold, in a heavy pot with a lid, doing nothing but sitting there while the tough collagen in the worst cut in the shop dissolved into gelatin and turned into the richest thing you have ever eaten. Expensive meat is expensive precisely because it is tender fast. It does not need time. Your nan could not afford it, so she bought the cuts that needed hours, and she gave them hours. And what came out of that oven at 6 o'clock was better than the quick, expensive version, not merely a decent substitute for it. That is the secret. That is the whole thing. Cheap food does not taste cheap. Rushed food tastes cheap. Your nan had less money than you and more patience, and every Sunday she proved that the second one matters more. Try one this week. The tin scrapings, the teaspoon of Marmite, the bicarb in the potato water. Then tell me in the comments whether your nan knew something we forgot. Mine did. I've got the jar of dripping on the side to prove it.